Today I'm joined by Alea Fairchild. Alea, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I've got your LinkedIn right in front of me, so if you're overly modest, I will definitely interject.
My official title at Ecosystem is Principal Advisor of Infrastructure and Cloud Enablement. See, she takes a plug and puts everybody back together again. I'm a girl geek. I love infrastructure. I love business processes. I love creating the dynamics that things work. I'm trained as both an engineer and a business person, and I really like to see the evolution of processes to fit circumstances. And this is why I've been following for quite a while Connected Office, Connect Office Spaces, Smarter Buildings. I am part of a team of people that is involved in the future of work. We're an advisory system, and we look at property tech, we look at digital economy, we look at how people work, and we also look at infrastructure and the work environment of the future. And that latter part's the part I'm working on. How are we going to work going forward? One of my bigger bugbears at the moment is we've gone from working from home to working at home, and the whole mindset and mind shift of how we work and how we want to engage is changing. And a lot of people are not comfortable with realizing there's going to be no return to normal. There is no new normal. Normal, very much like the template and font and word, changes frequently, and you're going to end up with an evolution towards where we're going. But this pandemic and economic conditions have accelerated a lot of what was already in the pipeline. And as I say, it's not digital transformation, it's digital acceleration. So we're moving faster than we thought possible. So everyone's starting to think about the other person as well. So it's not just a matter of, I don't want to commute, or I don't want to be in a big meeting with lots of people. That's scary. It's a matter of what can I do for the other person that I'm going to go see or do to make this profitable for both of us. I think there's a real change of mentality, that it's not just a matter of push, push, push. Actually, I just told someone yesterday, who's a friend of mine at LinkedIn, fairly high up at LinkedIn, and she goes, if I have to be on another Zoom meeting today, I'm going to, expletive. And I said, look, there's no rush. Go take your laptop outside, turn off the camera, turn off the audio. I mean, you can hear, but don't turn off, they can't hear you. And just sit outside and breathe for a few minutes and listen to the meeting, but don't participate actively, and just chill. And it's okay. And no one's going to be upset with this because there's no rush. And this rush we've actually inserted in our lives. Okay. We're actually more productive right now in weird ways than we were before. And it's not because we're working at home. We have that discussion, working from home versus working at home. It's not that we're home, but it's we're actually carving out chunks of our day to do certain activities.
Are we becoming more efficient because there's a sort of hyper awareness of routine? Like, we've had to rethink our routines so much. We've been forced to rethink our routines that now it's just sort of a default setting in our brains where we're questioning what we do and its efficiency.
I'm looking at, for me, this is also a bandwidth issue. When's the best time for me to record a webinar? And this is 6 o'clock in the morning. You're thinking, who's insane? Who does that? I know I have bandwidth. I know I'm not going to have issues of my neighbors with the network. I know I'm not going to have people crashing around, and I can do a nice calm, and I can, I can redo, etc. And that chunk is done. I know when my best time to write is. I know when my best time to talk to people is. I started my day off today with a 7 o'clock in the morning conference called New Zealand. And I will end my day today at the end with a conference called the United States. But these are interspersed with other activities I'm doing. So I agree with you. We're thinking about, okay, I'm not going to sit 12 hours in front of my computer all day. But that's what we were doing in the office anyway. It just wasn't on a Zoom call. It wasn't this whole two-dimensional thing, or it wasn't talking to ourselves and making videos. It was actually a wide variety of things. And I was talking to a colleague this morning, and he is involved in communications. And he was saying they have a new rule starting next week, which is September 1st, that they have to go in the office once a week in a controlled environment for everyone's social and mental health. to everyone just to sit down, connect, have a coffee, especially from a distance, but to see each other, reconnect, making sure everybody's okay.
Going back to that instance of the office telling its employees that you have to come back at least for,
Unless there's circumstances. Now, I'm wondering what's going to happen here because a number of these people have small children and they're doing homeschooling. So, rearranging of schedules, which spouse or partner is going to take the kids that day when I have to go into Brussels or I have to go into Leuven or what have you. There's going to be some flexibility. This goes back to the biggest point I was making in the previous discussion we had, was about agility. Okay. And we're getting into, oh, it's risky for me to go in, or what happens when I go in. But then it's, if I have to go under what conditions do I want to go in? And I don't mean just hygiene, and that's a big issue. Okay. But what issue, do I have to take public transportation? Will I be unhappy? And if you look at a lot of trends right now, more people taking their own cars, more people picking odd hours to go in. So I won't go 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I might go 10:30, 11 o'clock. Or I might want to stay later. So I'm not as inconvenienced anymore. I don't feel the pressure to meet the obligations I met before. But I don't plan more than a day or so in advance. Because this is not uncertainty, there's ambiguity as to what's going to happen next. No. Is this a hotspot or not a hotspot? Is this person in quarantine or not? The guy in New Zealand I was talking to this morning just moved from Singapore back to New Zealand. He's from New Zealand. He's in a 14-day quarantine in a hotel in Rotorua. Everything you've heard about the quarantine in New Zealand is true. They arrived, there was the military escort. They were taken by bus to the quarantine hotels. He has we're kidding about this. He needs a hose pipe and he's got the internet of a straw right now. He doesn't have a lot of bandwidth to work per se. He's there for 14 days and they'll be released on the 8th and he can go back to doing, whatever, but it's a real strong procedure. But that's the whole ambiguity thing. You arrive, here's the procedure, here's what's going to happen, here's when you get out. And you can't control every aspect of it.
Where exactly do you see that difference between uncertainty and ambiguity?
Let's take a step backwards. In risk management, okay, and we're talking cybersecurity. In risk management, I can define risks. Some of those are physical risks, some of those are intellectual property risks, some financial risks. I can define those. And my actuarial friends can tell you, I can even put numbers to those. Percentage chances of things occurring. If I have a security breach, how much is it going to cost me? I can go look at the Pokemon Institute studies and how much, the average breach is going to cost, blah, blah. But I don't know the circumstances or the condition. And it's not a matter of uncertainty. I'm uncertain of them because at least if I'm uncertain, I know what the parameters are. I just don't know which one's going to occur. Ambiguity is I don't even know the parameters. Every time I walk out the door, something else may occur that I didn't expect. So I have to be super agile because all of a sudden I find myself in an elevator with somebody else. I wasn't expecting that. Or I find my car broke down and I'm on the side of the road without a mask and gloves. There's just, as I'm going along my day, like a traffic jam, okay, now what do I do? You kept having to rethink scenarios. And what makes people feel better, and this going back to work concept, is some sort of framework or parameters saying, here are all the possible things that may occur and how we're trying to deal with them. Uncertainty means I can define it. Ambiguity means I can't define it, but I can try to put measures in place to make whatever outcome is going to happen from it a little less uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, and okay, but then also you're going to have to live with the level of discomfort to some extent. And a lot of people are not agile. We've seen that the last 6 months. I want a haircut. I got to go out and I need my beer. Okay, people wanting to go out and not thinking the rules apply to them or the situation applies to them because they can't deal with not only uncertainty but ambiguity. Tell me what I must do. I can't understand. And the challenge with this whole virus situation, we don't know. And everything we know every week changes. So there is no certainty, and there's no even defined uncertainty. And we're still learning, what does this mean to us? What does this mean to our supply chain? What does this mean to the ability to go back to a workplace? And the more we learn, the more we have to adapt. What COVID has accelerated is things we were already talking about. Okay, we already had contactless payment. Okay, now I'm going to have a contactless office. And I'm going to run around with this lovely phone in my hand. You know, I'm going to buy my coffee this way. I'm going to call for the elevator this way. I'm going to do a lot more things with this. Oh, and oops, now I have to give up some of my data privacy. What if I don't want to do this? Well, then maybe I can't buy the coffee. Okay, which is more important to me, the coffee? Or so we're going to make trade-offs. And these trade-offs, again, you don't know what that trade-off is going to end up costing you. We're looking at reduced physical contact. We're looking at changed regulations. We're looking at new habits. We're looking at different hygiene processes. And these are clarified as we roll along. And because of that, you're going to see a lot of things are no longer for purpose, but multi-purpose, because there's going to be a lot of different purposes coming up. Okay, so how do we restructure it? And you know, I'm involved actively in hospitality and retail market analysis. I'm going to have a ballroom in a hotel, which I could use for a small wedding. I could also use it as an e-learning center for local university students studying for their exams. I could also have it as a day space for a company. All different functions, but it's going to be multifunction. And the infrastructural investments I've already made, which could be sensors, it could be Wi-Fi, it could be HVAC ventilation, are all towards creating a functional space. But that function is going to be different. So all the folks in commercial real estate right now are saying, okay, I have this square meterage, and I look at it in terms of revenue generation, but that might change on what revenue we're actually generating with it.
And that's particularly interesting. What sort of changes are you seeing in commercial real estate?
You have two issues: investment and people who are occupiers. The folks who are occupying are looking at leases and sort of saying, okay, what can I justify? Do I want to renew right now? How much do I want to renew right now? But they're finding, and this is probably good news for people, do want to go back to an office. They don't want to continue, well, working at home. We had this discussion earlier. Working from home was a temporary emergency measure. Working at home is a lifestyle choice. A lot of folks would like to leave the home for variety, because they don't want to be doing homeschooling for the rest of their lives. But also they want that diversity. They want to interact with other human beings, but under what conditions? So we've already learned we don't want to commute. We don't want to pay high expensive rents if we don't have to be in certain regions. So you're going to see shifting of people moving house but it doesn't mean we don't want to be in a workspace. We just want to be in a workspace that has more room, that is more comfortable for us, that makes us feel secure to do work. And a lot of that work is face-to-face work. So we're balancing an act between how we're going to use physical space. So the commercial real estate guys are looking at, okay, how much square meters does that company need now versus what are they going to do with it? And then what do we have to change for ventilation? And what kinds of barriers and spaces are we going to have to put up? And what sort of processes for entry and exit are we going to have to put in? So what kind of visitor management are we going to put in? And how are people going to be recognized in the building as to their rights as a user and their role as a user?
Is it a bit of a, is there a bit of a conflict or a challenge there with the fact that occupiers are probably going to be a lot more demanding in terms of what they expect out of a workspace? And, that's probably been the case for the past couple of decades, and that just only increases. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you've got this cataclysmic event that has kicked off, this substantial decline in the actual usage. So the demand. I
think people are going to make investments, and this is me, that people are going to make investments in interior design. And I don't mean like wallpaper. I mean, how do you make people want to come back to a workspace? And you're going to have very innovative designs and ways of using technology at work, which we've talked about for many years, and sensors and IoT and making it an environment that's welcoming and that actually is part of the work process. So it's going to be multi-purpose. I'm not saying smaller or agile, easier to transform, but that involves a lot of infrastructural investments. And doing that is creating the work environment for the future, that you've got the necessary bandwidth, tools, deep cleaning hygiene facilities, so you know that you have a level of comfort there, much more open, looking a bit more luxurious, more plants, more greenery, less clinical, that people are feeling. There's going to be a high level of stress, people coming back to an office place. So including sensory experiences like certain scents or kinds of lighting, or even the use of sound. I saw a really innovative one. Instead of just a plexiglass wall for hygiene protection, they put a digital water wall. So you have like a waterfall in this, and it's making people a bit more at ease. So I'm actually seeing, and I'm loving this with some of the folks I'm working with, that people are innovatively thinking about the design of the space. They're not only thinking about how much square meters do I need, what do I need to do with it?
And is that forward thinking? Is it proactive or is that reactive? Is it reactive because competition is increased just by the fact that people are now comparing their offices or their workspaces to, their place of ultimate comfort, which is their home?
I don't think the home is the place of ultimate comfort anymore. I think a lot of people have been here 6 months wondering, okay.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I think that people want to get out so they can make their home again, and not their 24/7 existence. There's a difference between working from home. So in essence, the business has intruded into my home life and then stuck its thumb in there, and now I have to do that here too, versus working at home where I have a process and a defined space for working and a defined space for living, and I can separate those, at least in my mind, that this is where I work and this is where I live, or how I live for that matter. Now I have to admit, I am a digital nomad. So I take my kit and I go work where I need to work. Okay, not everybody can do that. But I believe one of the trends you're going to see is kind of along the lines of a Regus or one of these rental office spaces. You're going to see remote areas where digital nomads can check in. No longer a coffee shop. Okay, our Starbucks might be heartbroken for this one, but a place where I can go and work as I'm on the road. So it's not like going to be like the CoHub or some place that I belong to as a community, but that's going to be in essence remote communities that I can go from place to place if I have to be there. So think about your salespeople. Salesperson would go work in a regional sales office. Okay, maybe I decide I don't need those regional sales offices anymore, but I do need a place for my salesperson to meet a potential client in a particular region. Am I going to send my salesperson running around from business to business to business? What is the hygiene risk there? Or am I going to send them to one location where they can meet a number of people, but they've been to one location? Easy to track and trace. And that location happens to have certain hygiene standards. This is where hotels come in. Hotels have really put a lot of effort into these branded hygiene programs. Even the one like seals on the door, you can see the room has been serviced, that you have that level of comfort that something has been done here.
What does that mean exactly, branded hygiene programs? Is it just, showing that the hygiene is happening, having hygiene facilities, and then making sure that the company's brand is associated with that?
And it's audited, that you can actually see they're doing what they say they're doing. Mm-hmm. And what investments they've made make that happen. What apps they have now that the room's contactless, for example. I can order from a QR code I can do lots of things in the room that don't involve me touching anymore. So I can see the implementations they've made. Something else we've talked about a little bit is the concept of regional satellites. So let's say I work for a large organization. I no longer have to be at the home office. I can work closer to home, but it's still a branded satellite location. But it might be one floor of an office building. So a Cargill or a GE or whomever may not have the whole facility. They might co-share and they have the fourth floor. And when you walk in, it's branded as Cargill or GE for that area. And like you would normally have an office where you would, check in terms of assigned to space and work, you could say, okay, today I have to be in the Duluth office and then tomorrow I have to be in Paris, and I can make arrangements to be where I have to be and utilize a smaller footprint of the organization. So the organization would actually have relationships with real estate networks, commercial networks of spaces to say, okay, I need to have so much square meterage in the next 12 months. And then look at the usage and then reaffirm on the base of the usage. And I'm just going to use the analogy of the airlines. If the airlines would normally say, okay, I'm British Airways, I give X amount of discount to a large corporate person because you booked so many flights with us. And I audit that and I check that and I give you a different discount 6 months later if the volume's gone up. So looking in essence, pay by use per se versus longer term contracts. So volume usage. Again, I'd have to track and trace this. I'd have to actually verify who's been there using the space for how long. But that's not the normal policy. So what you're seeing is business processes changing, becoming smaller, more agile, and we're looking at how we utilize space, how much more intelligently we utilize space, but also multi-purpose. How can I recreate that space?
So one important question, if we're thinking about, because we've talked quite a lot about all of the changes, all of the new things, all of the ideas that people are getting excited about, or maybe not getting excited about and having to do. Where are the good bets? Where are the bad bets? And specifically, what is here to stay? What is this, the cliche of the new reality? What is the new reality? And what are maybe some of the changes that we're making now that may just be short term and may go if, God willing, Corona ever goes?
I think some of the short changes we're going to stick with is the flexibility of working outside of the traditional office space. People, especially in the lower levels of administration, people who are still white collar but on the hour, they have been checked in terms of timekeeping before. And there's been a big issue of, okay, are you working? Okay, how do I check if you are working? Well, working takes a different form now. So there's going to be more flexibility on these sorts of folks as to how they're audited, as to how they've worked. More trust and respect, in essence, of our fellow employees. When you say you're doing it, I'm assuming you're doing it. You may be doing it with a 3-year-old next to you who's hitting the mute button every 5 minutes, or you may be doing it and homeschooling at the same time, but you are doing it. So no longer is it very rigid. We're very flexible. That flexibility will increase, but there's a lot of people who want to go back to an office for the social interaction, for the variety in their lives, to meet other people. So we're going to go back to an office as soon as we can, but it may not be the office we were in before. There'll be more space involved. The whole concept of shared offices, the whole big class, everyone's in one space together. We already had enough problems with that when people caught the flu, and then everybody caught the flu, okay?
Yeah.
So open office spaces will probably change. Ventilation systems will change. Hygiene checks will change. How you report being ill procedurally will change. I am a proud graduate of Cornell, and Cornell, for the students coming in now, have daily COVID checks. Okay. There's an app for that. There's an app for everything. How do you show your status? So we're going to have to be, unfortunately, a bit more giving of our data, which I'm not thrilled about. Personal issues. I've been a data person, privacy person for a long time. But if you're my colleagues in Singapore in lockdown, then they carry their phones with them and they have to show the code all the time as to the status of their health.
And is that something that we need to be wary of? The undercurrent of of Corona, or the thing that's going on beyond the scenes, is this is another great leap in the direction of sacrificing more privacy. Is that something that's
I'm
going
going
to
to
come out
phrase
of
it
this?
differently. If you look at every country and how they've been dealing with this, if you communicate well, and people know what's happening with the information and they know why it's being used, they're less reticent to give it. Okay, which has been the same in data privacy for years. If you're going to give me permission, role-based permission in an organization, and I'm using your data and you benefit from that, you're more likely to want to give the data. If you don't communicate why you're using it, or you use it wrongly or inconsistently, and it damages the role of me working, then I have a problem with that.
And okay, so going back to the coffee example of giving up data to be able to get our coffee using our iced tea, using our smartphone. There doesn't seem to be too much of that right now, of telling people how the data is going to be used. Is that going to have to change, or are we just, maybe not, maybe not any of our generations, but our future generations just going to see that as the norm of not really having anything such as privacy?
I think it depends on what you consider as private. The fact that I drink a certain iced tea is that could change tomorrow. I could change my mind completely, then it's irrelevant anymore. My health status could change tomorrow. Okay, so in essence, you're looking at the now footprint. How are you now? And that information has a time constraint. It could change. So let's go back to real estate. I might not let somebody into our office space, which is in essence a hygienically protected space, if they potentially are going to do something to change that scenario. So this is a matter of risk. I mentioned my colleague who's back in New Zealand. The whole procedure of him, he's from New Zealand originally, to get back into New Zealand, and he's in this whole quarantine hotel thing, is a very strict procedure because they live on an island. And anything you bring in is going to be a problem. So this is why Australia and New Zealand and a few other countries that are waterbound have been very specific about procedure. And the fact that you have to give up you have to give data to do this because there's a reason. One other thing you're going to see is a little bit different is corporate branding.
How so?
Right now, we are working from home. And depending on how our respective employer has communicated with us, you do or do not feel a part of the corporate brand at this moment. Okay? Part of the reason we have people working in a particular workspace is that they feel that part of that corporate brand. When you walk in and they have the name of the company on the parking spaces and on the wall and on the napkins, and it's almost like being on Lufthansa. You're on Lufthansa because you see everything that says Lufthansa. That experience of working there, part of that is physical, and part of that is branding, and part of that is also how that corporate brand treats you as an employee. Good corporate citizenship. So part of the reason we're going to have workspaces is that not a matter of control, but they would like to have you present and engaged and part of the corporate brand. And it's hard to push that if you are dispersed and decentralized in a very effective way. It's better to have you come back in controlled in such a way that they can communicate with you and engage with you as part of the corporate brand.
So are we seeing the limits of virtual work or virtual company culture?
Like Salesforce or Cisco saying, you don't have to Google, you don't have to come back in till X. Okay. But most of that work has already been done electronically. The only reason they're physically together is for collaboration purposes. A lot of work that's done, even intellectually, still has physical components to it. So from that perspective, how are you doing this? How can I enable you to do this? So the biggest issue is process training. How can I help you do things the way we would like to have them done for our corporate brand? Okay. It's not that technology, it's not that you're investing in really good technology. You're investing in really good processes and training the people on those processes that the technology enables.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're actually trying to create better spatial design, better places to work in a way that we can brainstorm and engage, some of it physical, some of it digital and virtual, but that you actually come away with a good feeling from it.
So is having a physical space a corporate home, is that essential to having a company culture? Can you not have a virtual culture? Is it just a part of human nature?
You can have a virtual culture. I've worked for 3 different virtual organizations based in different countries. Right now I'm working with a company that's in Singapore. I have not been to the physical office. I've actually not met physically in person any of my coworkers. Okay. Although we've all been in the same business a long time. So I've met them in previous lives, but not in this current configuration. And we know mutual people, same people, but it doesn't necessarily mean we've actually physically worked together before.
If I think about it, thoroughly, if those special moments of feeling a part of something, this is a little bit more than work. This is actually a place that I really enjoy being, or people I really enjoy being around. Those always happen in those face-to-face gatherings. I've never had a particularly good Zoom call where I go, you know what, these are
my people.
These are my people.
I can tell you a lot of people, as you know, I do Olympic weightlifting competitively. And when we go to world championships, you're together for maybe 4 hours. In many cases, a very memorable 4 hours. And you talk about that for years, those 4 hours, but you're in the same place doing the same thing. So there's a lot to be said for physical engagement. It's not mandatory. It just provides a different element, different aspect. And we as human beings are very good at sensing, how we feel about someone when we meet them. It's that underlying connection. Is this person being honest with me? Yes or no? Is this, what's really going on here? How does that change how we work? I think going forward, you're going to see different kinds of workspaces, that ones that create that level of comfort. One of the great conversations I had was about sensory elements in workspace, and someone said a workspace they were familiar with, they'd remove the clocks and they just put certain scents in at different times of day, to let people know, in essence, where they were in their day, like the smell of slightly burned popcorn around 4 o'clock in the afternoon from the microwave. You know what I'm talking about. In the workspace, someone's burned the popcorn, and it's getting close to the end of the day because someone's hungry.
Well, isn't that a bit of a retail gimmick, like something
sure.
maybe do in supermarkets, or that seems to be particularly manipulative.
But also lighting, the use of temperature, to get people to do things differently. My personal favorite one in retail is they change the space of the tiles. So you're going down the cart, down the aisle, and all of a sudden you click, 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 and you kind of stop for a second, which positions you in front of very expensive goods.
Oh.
It's a nice little psychological trick. That was my undergraduate degree, was food marketing. So you learn lots of ways to maneuver people around physical spaces. But we're going to have to change that because you need more space per person.
Yeah, it's just a panoply of different changes, stuff we have to get used to, and then that constant hyper awareness of everything you do in your daily routine. And how many different iterations of your daily routine have we seen in the
every day
is
different. And I wake up every day, and not only what day is it, that's the whole thing. What do I have to do today? And like this morning, I got up and checked a few things, and things had changed while I was asleep. So now I had to reposition a few things. And it's not just a matter of working with people around the clock, but people make changes after you've left something, and you come back and find them and go, oh, okay, oops, we're not having that call today, or that cost was postponed, or my 5 o'clock meeting got moved. And we're constantly repositioning But now we don't have to reposition where we physically are. I don't have to now get into a car and drive off someplace to be at another office. I just flip on another Zoom meeting. So that part's gone away for a while. But at one point, you're going to say, but I want to get out of here for a few hours.
Mm.
And where have people gone all their staycations? They haven't gone to an urban resort. They've gone to a little cabin in the country someplace where they're still alone from point of virus risk, but there's someplace else.
Yeah.
They just wanted to go someplace else with some fresh air and some greenery. And they could walk around a bit. And then they're happy to go back home again. So
yeah, I get the impression it's like the lamest vacation season in recent memory.
it's fascinating. Like, as you know, I do hospitality. It's fascinating to see the whole domestic tourism spin. You know, trying to bring people who live maybe less than 50 kilometers away to your location to engage.
Alea, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It's been an absolute education.
Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity because I do believe we're going to be engaging quite differently going forward on how we work.